So this is actually the second report that we've done. Together for LA didn't exist when we did the first report. It was an idea of what we needed to do. But a lot of times in the first 6 months after a disaster, there's a lot of lessons learned and a lot of things that happen that uh, um, it's really important to capture, especially for the next disaster. You can kind of have something ready that can cover uh, and remind you of things that you need to watch out for future disasters. So the first Together for LA report was very helpful just to kind of capture a moment in time of what was going on. This report is going to be designed as kind of how and why the Together for LA process, the Together for LA collaborative got developed. And our goal is twofold. One is that we wanted to create a guide to show how small businesses could use Together for LA's resources and could and to help them understand just really the vast support opportunities that exist. And the second thing that we wanted to do is there used to be about 200 communities across the United States that had public-private partnerships for disaster response, recovery, and resilience. But that ended about 20 years ago. Now, of course, because of COVID and because of the shared idea that there are all kinds of threats and vulnerabilities and hazards and disasters that every community has to deal with, there are, I would say, maybe 60 communities that are interested in exploring how to build public-private collaboratives like this. And so part of the idea of documenting how this came together and what the idea behind it was is that it's going to be useful across the country to see this and to look at Together for LA as a model for cities. The founding partners of Together for LA include LAEDC, the Los Angeles Chamber, and LAEDC is the secretariat right now, and Angela Amirkanian, who's on the call, has been doing the lion's share of providing that secretariat, and we greatly appreciate her work. The Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, and Andrea Nunn is on the call. And I don't know if there's anyone from LISC on the call, but LISC has just done an enormous amount of good investing in minority and women-owned businesses and businesses operating in some of the poorest parts of the area. Then there's us and the Dr. Lucy Jones Center for Science and Society, and John Bury, I think, is on vacation, but just a tremendous partner. And then the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles have been coordinating with us since, I want to say, June or July of 2020. And a silent partner, but organization that was really indispensable in connecting all of us together was Wells Fargo. And we're really appreciative that Greg Shurkin is on the call today. And one of the things that you'll notice about this is that every single organization here represents kind of a different skill set and a different visibility into the issues affecting small business. And the other interesting thing about this is that this isn't owned by the city or county of Los Angeles. Together for LA, in a way, is a kind of like Switzerland, where it basically started as a safe place to talk among organizations that were all working to address small business. I'm going to stop here a second and see if Angela, Greg, or Andrea, if any of you want to talk about a little bit about the early days and the evolution.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate the opportunity. So much of the work that we did in the early days, we were all, COVID-19 hit. We had a community of small, diverse businesses that really, really needed support, relief, resources, funding to help them keep their businesses open. So this collection of partners and Wells Fargo really coming together and collaborating, discussing, working together to figure out how we can get those resources out into the community. So much of this effort was done because there was such a huge, great need, such a vast, need to respond quickly with resources and support for the small business community. So really in the early days, it was all about us all coming together to see what we could do to help.
Greg, I mean, what was some of your thinking about this? It felt in a way very natural for us all to just start talking.
Mm-hmm. I can add to that. I'm sorry, Greg.
No, go ahead, Angela.
Thank you. This is Angela from LAEDC. I do want to share, and perhaps Greg, this is something you wanted to mention as well. We all worked with each other previously, prior to the pandemic, on various programs, organizations, support partners, other service providers. So like it was mentioned, it was a very natural fit, but because of this emergency, we all came together with a very targeted mission, a very targeted audience. We determined who is most vulnerable during the pandemic, which industries, what types of businesses, how many businesses with how many employees. We really targeted nonprofits, micro enterprises, and small businesses. And we came together specifically because each of the organizations that are on the screen have a different set of skills and expertise to offer. So it was really determining who can offer what and coming together to really curate a program that was targeted for pandemic relief, and making sure that we outreach to the right communities and we get them the assistance that was so very important and still is at this time.
Yeah. Greg, anything else about kind of the pre-Together for LA like process from your perspective?
Yeah. Well, I think Andrea and Angela said it well. I guess I would only add that Stephen, you and I done work together, and fortunately we've done work together on unfortunate other disasters, more natural disasters. But from that, we learned a lot in terms of how disaster impacts the small business community, particularly businesses that have been in communities that have been historically underserved and didn't have access to similar resources as other businesses had. And when we realized the magnitude of the pandemic, we knew it was going to have disproportionate impact on these businesses on a scale that probably had never been seen before. Certainly, I'd never seen anything like that. And so we knew that the only way we'd really be able to properly support the businesses that were going to be impacted was by getting all of our partners to come together, as Andrea and Angela already articulated. And we're just fortunate in that relationships were in place. Wells Fargo being in a position to be able to support these organizations was able to suggest that we come together and try to join forces, so to speak. And fortunately, we were able to do it really organically. We weren't able. Everyone really understood the mission, respected each other's organizations and the work that they had done, and we were able to leverage that and lay the groundwork so that when Wells Fargo did actually put our Open for Business program together, which is a program, if folks aren't already aware of it, in which we donated all of the gross proceeds from the fees earned through the Paycheck Protection Program to go back to small businesses and help the small business community navigate through the pandemic and become more resilient. We'd already laid the groundwork through the relationships and through the work we were doing with this collaborative. And so we were well positioned to get support from the Open for Business Fund that Wells Fargo has created, and really able to leverage that. So couldn't be more pleased or more grateful to everybody for the way in which they've been able to execute on this. Obviously, there's a lot of work ahead, but I think there's been so many great learnings, as you're going to share, that'll just better position us and help us all to be able to come together even more, hopefully fluidly in the future. So,
yeah, Greg, one of the things about drafting up this report that I didn't realize is, like, you look at each of these organizations, and we tried to actually develop a stakeholder map for around this, and it just ended up looking like spaghetti with a lot of cross things. But with LAEDC, you had the reach into the economic development organizations, the chamber, the reach into the other chambers and the other businesses, LISC, into all of the CDFIs and kind of connecting to the patterns on the street. You had us with the national, federal, corporate, kind of connections. Dr. Lucy Jones Center with the academic science and technical government. It looked like a spaghetti, but in a way it was like pulling together like a network of networks. And then the city and the county, of course, having their reach into everything as well. It was, I know it was organic. It was just that a bunch of us were starting to work together, and it kind of really came together. But it was really amazing how important this is. And I think that this idea of a network of Together for LA being a collaborative and being inclusive, I think has been a great theme for this. So in terms of the rest of the presentation, we're going to talk about why TFLA developed, the issues facing small business, how Together for LA helps, some ideas for next steps for collaboration. And then, because last week on the NLA phone call, I said I would talk a little bit about nonprofit resources. We'll finish on that front. So Greg alluded to this a little bit, that one of the issues with disasters is that they tend to expose and exaggerate historic patterns that were already existing, for good or for ill. And sometimes, for example, one of the benefits that people talk about actually of the past year or two has been the increasing ready adoption of technology and freeing people from the idea of the office space. But in this case, we were more focused on the historic patterns of concentrated wealth and widespread poverty. And I think there was a shared vision, a shared idea that the strongest LA, the best LA, would be one where no matter where you were in the no matter where you live in the city and the county, that you have access to resources and that you are able to unfold what you can do. But it's not just, and I see the bullet about the poverty rates. It's not just about the poverty rates. Hispanics, for example, account for 49% of the population in the area, and Blacks account for 8% of the population in the area, and yet only 20% of the small businesses in the area are Hispanic and 2% are Black. And during the initial kind of crisis stage, when the federal government was unveiling the PPP program and the EIDL loan programs, Black small businesses were able to access only 3% of the loan opportunities, and Hispanic residents were able to access only 11%. So below actually their ownership rates. And so it was statistics like this on a macro level, and then just the individual counseling. I remember both LAEDC and the LA Chamber were both hosting these workshops, and they would have hundreds and hundreds of small businesses on the calls, and just the messaging was really clear, that there, in terms of seeing disproportionate impacts. And it really didn't help that a significant percentage of the BIPOC businesses were in what you might call social industries: restaurants, health and personal care stores, fitness, leisure, retail, etc. So it was, I think that the presenting problem was obvious to all of us. And I think Selena Pakana just joined us from LISC. Selena, you guys were kind of flagging the importance of where you were lending. And you can see that the CDFIs like LISC were really concentrating in places that really needed it the most. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it was like for LISC, in terms of working with the city and the county on the $100 million loan, small business loan grant program, and some of the other things that you were finding. It would be important to talk with other organizations, that you couldn't do this in a vacuum.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up, Stephen. You bring up strong insights about the importance of just an equity lens in dealing with our lending practices. I unfortunately can't speak to that too extensively because I work more on our capacity building programs, and the best bet to answer that question would be my colleague Emma Kloppenberg, who is also the lead for the county and the city programs. But just to your earlier point, the pandemic only highlighted and brought further to the surface the large need for an equity lens in lending or grant making practices, and really allowing folks who are most vulnerable and most impacted by the pandemic to get the need to meet their needs rather. So just really reinforcing what you had raised earlier, and piggybacking on that.
If I could also add to what Selena was saying, I want to echo everything that she said, and also add that during the $100 million COVID regional relief fund and the disbursement of those dollars, what we found as a technical assistance partner in that work was that the equity divide is just, it was so apparent during this period. We were helping businesses who did not, the way to apply for those funds, you had to do it online. You had to have an email address. If there was limited access to broadband and digital resources, we had to really dive deep into setting up an email, setting up, the ability to access those funds. And so that's fundamental. That, we talk about the digital divide, we talk about, issues that existed before COVID, but really when COVID hit, we saw a great, it ripped open, it became apparent how huge the equity and the issues around not having equitable access to broadband, to funding, to resources was. And so, we were working on, just real fundamental, and speaking of which too, resources need to be available in language to really reach into communities and those traditionally underrepresented, underserved communities and businesses. So much of the work that we were doing was also in language.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Sorry, just one.
Go ahead.
Just also wanted to kind of build up on what Andrea had shared. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And obviously we're, truly very grateful for the chamber to be one of our TA partners at the LA COVID Fund. It was great help in getting just the work, the helping getting the money out the door. And it's actually not as simple, as it seems. To Andrea's point, there is a huge disconnect, especially in vulnerable communities and navigating grant processes and programs. And so it was, the technical assistance providers were a critical piece. And, to her point earlier, having various language availabilities as well was a huge help. And I think just I wanted to share that as a response to that digital divide need, LISC LA through the Together for LA program actually, and the funding of Wells Fargo was able to carry out a digital accelerator program in the latter part of last year, where we kind of responded to this need that we saw because of the COVID Fund program, where businesses who are most vulnerable and most impacted by the pandemic really have a difficult time, not only getting access to capital as what was seen through the grant program, but also just growing their businesses. So just wanted to also take this opportunity to share that, and also always just thank the collaboration of TFLA and the generosity of Wells Fargo.
Yeah, one of the things about this that this illustrates is it wasn't just necessarily a dearth of lending that was affecting these neighborhoods. It's also kind of how the different systems relate to each other. And I think, and I don't want to put words in the mouth of the city or the county, because both of them were really trying to be everywhere and do as much as they could, but no single organization has every core competency that you need. No single organization could say, deploy the best housing people, deploy the best online marketing people, deploy the best public health of and so I think that part of what this started to develop was just the sense of who can do this part, who can do that part, who can do the other. So then you flip the lens around and you look at it from the small business owner's perspective, and they're just bombarded by all of these questions. How do they keep their physical store repaired? How do they deal with their supply chain? What if they're personally sick? How do you deal with customers, et cetera? And so when you look at providing technical assistance, which is where Together for LA really came down as an important piece of it. You couldn't just provide technical assistance with regard to one thing, because the small businesses weren't asking for just one kind of problem solution. And the other issue, and this is one that we constantly heard in one-on-one counseling, in the webinars and the group chat discussions that we've had, in people just calling one of our phone lines, was that they knew that there was a lot of resources out there. They know that there were tremendous things, at least it was public knowledge, but almost always the question, the first or second question that we would receive is, how can I get help with ... And I think that part of the issue is not just accessibility, but awareness, understanding that all of these things existed. And so that was one of the presenting things that was going on with small businesses, was just we don't feel like we qualify, or we don't feel like this program is designed for us, or we're very concerned about this part of it, or we had a very negative experience with the PPP or the EIDL programs. And the truth is if you look at it, there are so many problem-solving business support organizations in Los Angeles. It's amazing. 265 EDOs, 118 urban development organizations, 91 venture capital firms, 88 cities, 73 co-working spaces, 44 CDFIs, 33 accelerators, 19 American job centers, and 8 SBDCs. And you look at this, one of the decisions that we had was, one of the design decisions that we had was, we're not going to try and reinvent the wheel. There's all of these things out there. What we need to do is to get our arm around where they are, who they are, and what the needs are. And for us so kind of a first step was, if we're not going to reinvent the wheel, how do we package and put together resources that people can tap? And if you go to the Together for LA website that's run by LAEDC, they have just a whole suite of local resources that are available there for access to capital, questions about public health, et cetera. And the Institute for Sustainable Development and LAEDC work very, very closely on this resource mapping element. And then, as we were mentioning earlier, the LA Chamber has got both one-on-one technical assistance, as does LAEDC and LISC LA, not just on one issue, but procurement, workforce, supply chain, et cetera. And the idea was, is that we have to proceed on multiple levels here. One is an awareness building about what's available. A second level of just providing kind of the introductions to what is, the things that people become aware of. How do we facilitate and develop those relationships? And third, then working side by side with the small business to be sure that the process of engagement is going smoothly. And so in a way, you look at it, the founding, there may be 7 founding partners, but all of the ecosystem, the business support ecosystem of Los Angeles, in a way, is Together for LA, in the sense that we don't want to reinvent the wheel, want to figure out how to get people to the right place, the right time, to meet the needs that they specifically have. And so we've talked about this a little bit too previously, but the top issues that small businesses have been asking about, and where we've been doing a lion's share of technical assistance, access to capital perennially comes up. In the early days, when everything was shut down, it was more about, how can I get a grant? Because I've been shut down through for no economic reasons, just through the public health. But increasingly, it's switched over to loans, and increasingly, we're starting to get some questions around insurance. But what we had is we've had a number of small businesses retool and reconfigure what they're doing. So, for example, ISD has been working with a company that originally was selling parts to aircraft, and has now transitioned to selling parts to electric vehicles, and they have to reconfigure their entire manufacturing assembly line, and so it's switching over as the business picks up and the pivots happen and change. Managing supply chain challenges. What we've seen is shortages in specific parts and trying to figure out how to do workarounds, and also when is the shipment coming? What is this, scheduling and inventory management, logistics management, workforce development. A lot of you have probably heard about the Great Resignation, just the number of people who have quit their jobs, have left, or transitioning to something else. Well, in 2020, the unemployment rate skyrocketed 21%. It's still higher in Los Angeles than the national average. It's about 6% now. But the unfilled jobs, the job postings, now exceeds the unemployment rate by, I think, a factor of 3. It's incredible. And so often people just say that they can't find people for their particular issue. Andrew, I want to stop here because I know you've got a lot of color on this. From the LA Chamber's perspective, what have been like the technical challenges that small businesses have been really flagging for you all lately? And Angela, I want to ask you kind of the same thing if I can.
So I think you've actually covered it in a really nice overview here, in that in addition to access to capital, it was all of these components of pivoting their businesses. I mean, we do have many, many stories of companies like the example that you just shared. Another example is, during COVID, a company pivoting their business from doing car detailing to sanitizing offices, just really being creative, entrepreneurial. This entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well, in our small business and diverse business communities. What happened was really being creative and finding those opportunities. Another thing that I want to kind of focus on too is, in addition to access to capital, it was access to contracts. So helping our small, diverse business community to identify and see where a contract, whether with a government agency or a corporate entity, is available to them, and helping them to navigate that process, because the process of getting to a contract can often be just as hard and a barrier, because that process is so cumbersome and complex. So the work that we were doing was helping businesses to know how to get to their first contract, and then could lead to more contracts. That becomes a game changer for their business. I'll pause there and let my colleagues on the line share some of their stories as well, but just wanted to say that, Stephen, you've really kind of depicted in the broad overview what the challenges are, including talent acquisition. We are hearing that a lot with the Great Resignation, the Great Discontent. We've hearing it described in many different ways, just hiring talent, and that's across all sectors. It really, finding talent, retaining talent, keeping talent during these times has been such a challenge. Angela, Selena,
yes. So if I may, I would also like to invite my two colleagues that are on the call, Seta Zarabian and Erwin Silva. They are our designated technical assistance representatives that have been in constant communication and contact with small businesses at this time. So I know that they've shared with me many of the findings and trends that small businesses were in need of and asked for. And as they transitioned into this virtual world, there became this new set of skills and needs to continue doing business. So I'd like to invite Seta and Erwin to share some of their findings and insights.
I'll go ahead. Hi, good morning, everyone. Seta Zarabian here, LAEDC, working on the Together for LA program. A lot of the things that I have seen definitely is businesses trying to pivot. They're looking ways for networking opportunities. And this is where our local chambers are so important, to be able to reach out to them, to be able to work with businesses that are like-minded, kind of like in the same positions, and then kind of finding out how have they developed, how have they pivoted with the way things are going. So I'm finding that a lot of the businesses that I am talking to are concerned with their development. Where are they going to go to? Where are they going to go next? And then also working with our colleagues with the BTA team, the business technical assistance team, and as far as, having them, preventing them from laying off individuals, how are they going to be able to look outside the box and being able to work with the local America's Job Centers, with the workforce development team, and be able to bring on individuals with the different programs that are out there to be able to help them with the on-the-job training or the paid work experience, to be able to bring in more people that way so then they can help with the bottom line and be able to sustain and hold on to the individuals that they currently have. So just helping them look at different avenues. And as Andrea mentioned, procurement opportunities too. A lot of the businesses are not aware of procurement or how they can actually get into government contracting. So it's just educating them, helping them. Thankfully, as far as the team with LADC, we get a lot of information on grants that are out there, and you can see that on our site that Angela actually puts there. So a lot of the businesses are referred to that information site, a resource site, where they are able to get a lot of the information, and we're there to be able to be advocates for them, to help them, guide them through the different processes.
Awesome.
Erwin?
Yeah, thank you, Seta. And hello, everyone. Erwin Silva here with LAEDC. So Seta pretty much mentioned almost everything. I do have to stress, I know a lot of businesses are going through a tough time, especially because of the unforeseen circumstances of COVID-19. Some of these businesses are obviously mentioning that they're scared to lose their current workforce. They're not sure of what services are out there, what resources are out there to sustain the current employee or workforce that they have. And some businesses are actually, the opposite. They're struggling to actually find talent for their actual business. So they're not sure exactly where to look for or how to get these individuals. They've mentioned to me that some of these individuals just, it seems like they just might not want to work. There's even incentives that they try to, promote for them to actually join on board. So across the board, I think businesses just need to be more informed of the resources out there, the assistance. And I think a lot of businesses just don't know that there is help out there for them. So that's the gap that we're trying to bridge. And this program is definitely amazing in the sense of, providing them all the resources and services that are available within their local community as well.
Awesome. Selena, did you want to add anything about what you were seeing here? I know developing an online presence, kind of the digital migration piece, LISC has been really leading on that part too.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephen, for raising that question and giving me a chance to kind of share some insight on this. And I think just really, some thoughts and to reaffirm what our colleagues at the LADC have shared about just having a resource hub, I think is very, very important. I think businesses just need to know what's out there and have a breadth of resources that they can access, like one-stop shops that have different types of grant, loan, or technical assistance opportunities is key, because I feel like, a lot of businesses just don't know what's out there and need to be match made to what suits them well. Something that we're seeing at LISC is that not a lot of businesses are actually loan ready, and it would actually put them in a detriment if they were to take a loan that they're not capable of taking on. So having that opportunity to pivot to grants or technical assistance programs that could actually help them at this time would also be super beneficial. And I think just a second bit to reinforce what has been said is that I feel like capital and access to capital is always imperative and very important, but I feel like it is most efficient and most impactful when it is paired together with technical assistance. Money is always important, like I mentioned, but we also need to teach folks how to grow in their capacity and how to make the money stretch and how to make it a strong investment. And that's why for our accelerator programs at LISC, we do provide grant or stipends. For the digital accelerator program, we were able to do that. We were able to provide $1,000 digital presence plan execution stipends to each of our 23 businesses. But like I said, it comes with the knowledge of how to grow your business with the capital that you have. So really just thinking through, like I mentioned earlier, number one, an ecosystem or a hub of resources, which we also, lean on the LAEDC's community connectory for that. At LISC LA, we also have a small business newsletter and our LA COVID Fund website. So really love the exchange of resources there. And number two, just, understanding how capital and capacity building inevitably need to go hand in hand would probably be, my strongest takeaways from the last few years and months of the pandemic.
Yeah. Greg, I didn't put this in the report, but this is, because there's not really good data on it, but something like 40 to 60% of the small business owners, or entrepreneurs didn't have prior business experience going in. And so what a program like this does with the technical assistance, it's almost like providing kind of guide rails to help these small businesses get more mature and to evolve and to grow up. And so everything that Selena's saying is like spot on. This is kind of what you need if you really want to start developing a distributed, widely distributed economy, is really kind of investing in the deficit areas. And I think that this is part of what it is not just the capital, it's the technical assistance and it's the awareness of and education about what the tools are that are available for folks. So I don't know if you wanted to comment on this part at all.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you and I learned this a long time ago, Stephen. It's great to be able to provide access to capital, be it in the form of grants or loans, but what really helps these businesses is being able to provide that technical assistance to help them get through not only whatever shock or challenge they're facing, but to be able to address it more long term, and obviously position themselves for success going forward. And we've recognized this, and we're grateful to. That's why we made this investment. Through our partners who have done such a great job helping to not only identify where the opportunities are, but really to really hone in and help those businesses based on whatever unique issues or challenges they were facing. And ultimately, I mean, it's going to help us, help our entire small business ecosystem, because in turn will make these businesses, better able to apply for the contracts that Andrea referenced before, better able to provide for more capital, and most importantly, know what to do and where to go when we will face these inevitable shocks and challenges in the future.
Yeah. So kind of going through this just super fast, because I just realized we're running up on the hour here. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to get help. So the first line was the togetherforla.org, but in addition to making it easy for people to get help, I think there was a collective understanding that we had to go to people as well. Just the importance of awareness building, like Erwin talked about, is such a key here. And so outreach has been kind of very much on our minds. And of course, with the TFLA website, you can go to every partner, and there is a way to engage with Together for LA and to go back to get valuable things, to get valuable resources. Secondly, the idea of taking a class or a webinar is helpful, particularly for folks who don't have a lot of time, but have time for an hour. And then lastly, the one-on-one counseling is more intensive. Speaking from personal experience, it can unfold for months. We have some people who've been calling us for 3 months on this. So it's really important, though, to make sure that there's follow through, that if somebody wants to get into a program, that they're actually able to see it all the way through. And just wanted to show for the outreach and awareness, we started developing these very, very simple tools in multiple languages. The Chinese Service Center helped us with the Chinese translation. Our own Erica Guzman Cornejo helped us with the Spanish translations, and we've had experts be able to break down the individual issues that we've seen, and we're going to be continuing to do a series of these throughout the next few months, because again, kind of understanding the small businesses and the small nonprofits and the organizations that really need help. It's not, they just have limited bandwidth. So you need to make it as simple and as easy to use as possible in terms of just kind of that initial guidance that you want to provide. So we've talked about the evolution of Together for LA. In the beginning, we were all about focusing on crisis response. We've moved into kind of the stabilization thing of like going to where we saw the biggest challenges and the biggest deficits, and really trying to stem, and provide a life raft for folks who really needed it. And now we're evolving into the recovery stage. And I think that down the road, because of the systemic issues that we talked about before, and that Greg alluded to, that there's going to be future disasters, we really need to think about a stage 4 focusing on resilience and future preparedness. So that kind of wraps up the overview or preview of the report. I'm glad to take any questions. Okay, and I just wanted to look through the comments to see if there were any questions there.
So how do we get onto that nonprofit resources like the Green Building Council? How can we actually put ourselves up on there?
Email info@isdus.org.
Could you repeat that?
Info.
Oh, right. Somebody's put it in there anyway.
Yeah, at isdus.org.
Okay, great, thanks.
Right. And so I gave a talk last week about some of the challenges facing nonprofit small businesses and chambers of commerce and organizations. And I said that I would talk about a couple of resources that might be helpful on that front. So if you look at Silver Lake, is Natalie still on? Natalie, if I can put you on the spot a second.
Hi, yes, I am. Sorry.
Yeah,
Just taking a moment.
no worries. When you look at access to capital for you all, you've got the membership dues, you have sponsorships. What else is in your business mix?
Our sponsorships are all just in kind, like wine donations from Silver Lake Wine for events, which is great. And, photography and a bunch of other things that we swap a membership for. Our membership dues are really, really low. So we really don't have any extra funds to do much, but I've gotten pretty good at finding help from different city departments and from other organizations. LA Chamber has been great. Hollywood Chamber has been great. So financially, that's our situation. We're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And we're all volunteers. The board is all volunteer.
Do you do events?
We do mixers, and traditionally we've done them in person 4 times a year. Since the pandemic started, we've been doing them more often because it's easier to do it on Zoom.
Yeah. Do you go on Southern California Grant Makers or some of these sites?
I have not. I believe I've sent that one to some other organizations, but we don't really, we would have to work with a grant writer, which is something that with everything else that's been going on, I just haven't had the bandwidth to do.
Yeah. And the problem with grants a lot of times is that they take forever to accomplish.
Yeah.
To get there. But have you signed up for Grant Station?
No.
So
Not familiar with that.
Grant Station, there are a bunch of these that aggregate all of the potential grants that are out there, and you can sort by geography, you can sort by issue, and there's so many actually opportunities, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But the only constraint about trying to get grants for nonprofit like yours is just that the time consumption for having those mature can be a little bit difficult. But that would be a resource.
And the other constraint is that we're a 501c6, not a 501c3.
Interestingly enough, more and more organizations are starting to include C6 in their eligibility criteria, particularly because they know that the membership base was particularly hard hit because of COVID.
Yeah.
And everything. But so one of the things that we would recommend in terms of fundraising is to develop kind of short-term fee for service, or I'm sorry, in the short term, develop some kind of events and go the sponsorship route. And in the midterm, in the medium term, develop, like you are doing already, kind of these contractual ideas to help. But in the long term, we can help. We can provide consultations on kind of the grant landscape and what can be done to help on that front.
That would be great. I mean, the problem is that we have a very small board. They all have other businesses and children and so forth. And so I am the one doing most of the work right now. And it's just been really difficult to have the bandwidth to do everything else that I'm doing and put even more attention into the chamber.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
so
we can work with you offline.
That'd be great.
On some of these issues. We're coming up to the top of the hour. Any feedback? Any last thoughts on what we're presenting and sharing?
Yeah, just real quickly, I'll add to that you mentioned the labor shortage, and I have been speaking to some organizations about finding ways to connect business owners, especially restaurant owners, with people transitioning out of homelessness. And there are some organizations that are working on this, and they form partnerships with businesses, and that seems to be working quite well in the majority of cases. You know, there were some concerns about business owners becoming caseworkers, but the organizations that I'm referring to really do help manage that very well.
That's fantastic. We need more of that. Back in the day, I created an Adopt a Chamber program, and we also created an Adopt a Business program where folks would kind of pair up and almost create a buddy system to help each other out. I think it's a great idea.
I'd like to know more about that too, but definitely we'll connect offline.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any last questions? All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this preview of the second Together for LA report. And I hope you can tell that it's been a work in progress, but that the idea was not to reinvent the wheel. The idea was really to help build awareness of the resources that are available in Los Angeles, and to provide technical assistance to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. And I think that the enhanced information sharing, enhanced communication, coordination, collaboration between and among the business support organizations, the economic ecosystem, and the community ecosystem of Los Angeles is really what's going to help create more of a distributed economy and help lift folks up who've been hurting because of the economic impacts of COVID. So with that, thank you all very much. That concludes today's webinar, and I look forward to engaging with you all as questions arise, and if there's any ways that we can help.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Stephen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a great
you.
weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.